Fate Fox/Blade. This is a fanfiction crossover between Fate Extra, Fate Grand Order, and Maruyama's Overlord, with the authors Kitsune-obsessed freak and ten-tailed god working together to create something that is hopefully, at least, enjoyable to read. This is not in any way going to follow canon or pre-established plot lines that people have come to know from the main original story, and is in fact closer to the fic Vulpine spanner in the works for how the world is actually set up, which implies some really funny shit to those who are in the know as the story progresses. Of course, poor Tamamo Mini Amaterasu has no idea what she's in for. Fortunately, we have Archer to save her, right? This story may contain graphic violence, mentions of self-harm, slavery as a horrible concept, war, death, non-consensual marriage, mentions of rape, foxes being foxes, humans in a medieval era being human, evil undead being legitimately evil, hand-holding, head pats, and religious fanatics being zealots and burning all the heretics. If any of the above things upset you in any way, I'm sorry, but have you read Overlord or anything Fate-related? If not, please ask yourself why you opened an Overlord and Fate crossover to begin with without knowing the source material. If you do, you have zero right to complain, my guy. We're pretty fucking tame in comparison. There may be other content unsuitable for children, but ain't no child reading this unless they got on questionable questing illegally, so fuck that LMAO. We're all adults here. Just be mature and don't be an ass if you don't like the content. Grammar and spelling mistakes are fine to point out, but I won't listen if you tell me our writing just sucks for the direction the story is going. You know you can pay my ass if you want custom content, so if you can't even cough up some cash, just write it yourself. That's all I have to say, so on with the story. It felt almost like waking up from a hangover, the man noted as he pushed himself from the muddy ground. He rubbed his head, trying to relieve whatever pressure was causing his head to throb. It was like some new part of brain matter had been grafted onto his skull with a soldering iron. He couldn't understand why he was here when he should have been in his bed at home. What made the headache so much worse was the shouting around him. This caused the man to look around to see a scene that would have been more appropriate to be watching in a fantasy movie instead of real life. The man tried to rub his eyes, hoping that he was just seeing things, but that didn't help. Instead, it caused the man to notice that his hands looked like they were covered in a layer of dirt, since they had never been this tan before. Yet, when he attempted to brush whatever was covering his skin away, he realized that it wasn't dirt. His skin had turned a deep tan that was beyond what should have been possible for him. That also led to him noticing the crimson sleeves covering his arms, matching a crimson skirt split in the center that covered a black set of armor. This armor was strikingly familiar to the man, as he could recognize the signature look of Archer from the Nasuverse. He wanted to continue observing himself, along with whatever other changes his body had gone through, but his attention was soon pulled back to the biggest cause of concern, the massive battle going on before him. Humans dressed in plate, chain, and leather fought against inhuman beast-like creatures. It was clear to see that the humans were on the defensive and losing this battle. Whenever one of the creatures was felled, it was at the cost of 3 or more humans to do so. This was unsustainable for these people. But in this entire fantastical situation, the man's attention was quickly grabbed, not by the death occurring before him, but by the weapons wielded by each player on the battlefield. His mind became bombarded by the information of their histories, the materials that the tools of war were composed from, the ones who wielded them. It forced the man to fall to a knee and hold a hand to his head as this new information settled within his mind. He didn't know exactly where it was, but it was barely a conscious effort for him to perfectly recall everything he had learned about each and every one of the hundreds, if not thousands, of weapons he had gazed at for only moments. Glancing once more at the fighting, he found something that was recognizable to him in all of this chaos. It was a woman in a blue dress, who, while not entirely human due to the bestial ears and tail she had, was still closer in appearance to one in comparison to the beast-like creatures that were mired in all the fighting. "Those beasts are just so disgusting," the woman claimed, standing by his side with a few talisman held loosely between her fingers. "Shall I remove them for you, Archer?" Her ears were pinned back against her head, and her fangs were most definitely bared behind the sleeve she used to hide her face from the people fighting, but she seemed to look at him for direction. Tamamo no May, for that was who she was, had clearly decided that he should be the one to take the lead. Slowly pushing himself to his feet, the man gave the fox-like woman an odd look. "Archer? Why are you called—" The man's question was abruptly cut off at the inhuman roar of one of the beast-like creatures that had finally taken notice of the new arrival. The man's steel eyes widened in fear at the oncoming rush of fur and muscle that desired his death. "Not so fast, shit stain!" Tamamo called out, tossing a talisman in the way of the feral-looking beastkin that had decided to attack them. As the being ran straight into it, they froze on the spot in a massive block of ice, Tamamo's face becoming a little smug at his frozen expression of rage. "Take some time to chill out and maybe rethink your next life." That snapped the man out of his frozen state to look at Tamamo once more. "What the hell is happening here? Why are we being attacked? Who are you?" "We don't have time for a panic attack right now. We're in the middle of a battle." Tamamo admonished him with a hint of a groan. But suffice to say, I certainly am not surprised we got isekai'd here as our characters when we started writing a fanfic. It's the exact kind of cliché I expect these days. "Isekai'd!" the man shouted over the growing screams. "This isn't supposed to exist. It's only supposed to be the work of fiction, not a damn reality." Turning to him with an open palm, Tamamo slapped him across the face hard enough to cause true pain, though it was clear she was holding back her strength a lot. "Get a grip! Like it or not, this is your reality now, and people are dying in front of you." Tamamo looked him in the eyes with a furious glare. "Are you just going to let these people die?" She looked off into the battlefield with a growl, manifesting a minefield of talisman between the beastkin and the humans to buy them some time. "You chose the path of Archer, the greatest hero I know. You can damn well see it through. A hero." The man, now beginning to accept the moniker, looked to the battlefield once more and watched for a moment as the slaughter continued. Beastkin that attempted to traverse the minefield found themselves blown to chunks of meat, unrecognizable from what had once been a living being. And yet, these bombs could only deal with the first group of beastkin that charged through. There were too many for the talismans to take out, and that only left the man, no, Archer, to do something. Looking down at his left hand, a blade came to mind. Something simple but strong. Trace on. In a flash of light, a dark blade materialized in his hand. It was a straight sword with a series of holes going down the center of the blade, a blade made to hunt for the blood of monsters. Runting. Next, like second nature, a black bow of a material that hadn't been discovered yet appeared in his right hand. Raising the bow up, Archer put runting to the bowstring and pulled. At the same time, his mind already knew what to do, as mana altered this conjured blade, thinning it out, twisting it into a spiraling spear that elongated. When the bowstring had reached its apex, Archer finally let go, watching as the altered conjuration of Hrunting sped out to the approaching beastkin. In only a single moment, the charge was put to a halt as a massive explosion ripped across the area, annihilating all in its path. Archer's eyes widened, both surprised at how powerful the attack was and impressed at his own ability. He glanced over to Tamamo. "Do you know anything about what's really going on right now? Because this—" Archer motioned to the bow as he conjured another copy of Hrunting and aimed. Letting go once more, another altered copy of Hrunting flew across the field, blowing apart another grouping of beastkin in an explosion of mana. Is not normal by any standard I'm aware of. The fox woman glared at him, her tail bristling for a moment before she seemed to decide it wasn't worth arguing with him. If you're going to be a moron and ignore what is happening right in front of your eyes, what you have felt with your own cheek, then don't cry to me when I leave your ass lost and confused all alone in a new world, Tamamo told him, with a sense that she was utterly pissed at his dismissal of the situation they were in. I don't have time to deal with newbies to this shit, who don't even understand that life throws curveballs at you sometimes, and how to deal with the unexpected situations that come from that. Archer put his hands out towards Tamamo in a placating manner. I'd rather not have the only person that has a handle on the situation ditch me. How about we, put things on pause until we're no longer dealing with a bunch of monsters trying to kill us. Then, you can tell me why we're even here in the first place. With another willing of his mana, Archer conjured forth a new copy of Hrunting and took aim. Firing upon another grouping of enemies, Archer switched to black arrows for greater precision and began raining further death upon the inhuman creatures, doing his best to ignore the thoughts of how brutally he was putting these creatures down, almost robotically, in fact. Yes, that would be nice, Tamamo half-growled, tossing talisman that exploded into balls of fire, electrocuted her enemies, or froze them in place while she imposed herself between the invading beastkin and the army behind her. Is that beastkin actually protecting us? One soldier asked with a dumbfounded look on his face. Nah, you hear what the others are saying, right? Another questioned with a tired groan, watching the fox woman wearily. She just wants to keep us for herself. Tamamo heard them both, apparently, as she was quick to respond to the provocation without looking at them, by chastising the beastkin she was fighting and making fun of them. Listen up, you morons, you can't eat humans. They are unclean, the foxwoman told them, her body beginning to glow lightly as she spoke. They contain diseases and curses that haunt your mind and soul and cause you to crave them more, driving you insane if you do such a thing. You're not in your right minds. The beastkin nearest her, a minotaur, bellowed in response to that. And what makes you so sure of this? What gives you the right to declare what is and is not good to eat? The goddess of the sun, chief deity of my homeland, gives me that right, she claimed boldly, her mirror lifting high into the sky as she activated her noble phantasm. In the name of Amaterasu, I will smite you from this earth to preserve the purity and sanctity of the kitchen. A beam of sunlight slammed out of the mirror, lancing out across the battlefield and utterly decimating the majority of the remaining forces. Those left behind were blinded and frozen in fear. Giving a weary glance to Tamamo, Archer readied another arrow and called out, "Start running or I'll finish what Tamamo started!" As if to intimidate the beastkin, the arrow that Archer had knocked glowed an ominous red at the tip. The few remaining beastkin made glances with one another, almost waiting for the initial cowards of their group to run first to maintain some form of dignity. But finally, 4 beastkin took off away from the humans, with the rest of the remaining beastkin quickly following after. With a heavy sigh, Archer lessened the tension on his bowstring and lowered both bow and arrow towards the ground, glancing between Tamamo and the humans that gazed upon both with mixed looks. Archer couldn't discern if they were good or not. At least the main problem has been taken care of, Archer remarked. He looked from the humans slowly approaching and back over to Tamamo and found himself asking, I'm not exactly much of a people person. Got any ideas on what to do for these people? I have no idea, Tamamo exclaimed with a slightly tired smile. It's been a long time since I interacted with humans directly. Most of my skill is just complaining and gossiping at the people who come to my shrine and being a dumb floof for brains. After a moment to smooth out her kimono and wander over to him, her golden eyes shining with mirth, she patted him on the shoulder in an encouraging manner. "I don't think they'll listen to me if I were to try to lead you, my dude," the foxy caster told him. Her voice lowered slightly as though to ensure only he would hear her. "You'll have to take public face here, even if it sucks." Archer buried his hand in his face with an annoyed groan, followed swiftly by a sigh as he looked up to see one of the human soldiers approaching. "Hail, good sir!" The soldier was dressed in armor, which was well beyond the price that any peasant could ever afford. Hello?" Archer replied. "I am Commander Eamon Nicole. I thank you, noble warrior," and Eamon glanced over to Tamamo, who gave him an enthusiastic wave while her tail wagged with just as much fervor. "Beast Mage, we are in your debt for saving us in this almost lost battle." Yeah, I am Archer." The man then pointed to the friendly foxwoman. "She's Tamamo. Would you mind explaining to us what exactly is going on, as we've only just arrived?" The commander gave a glance at both figures, thoroughly baffled at their lack of awareness. The beastmen of the East were assaulting the city. Why wouldn't you know this? You're some of the traveling mercenaries that came due to the request our city sent out, aren't you? "Yes," Archer answered with an awkward pause. "We only just came to this country from the south. We're slightly out of the loop as it is." Eamon's blue eyes widened far enough that Archer thought that they were about to pop out. "You came from the south? From the wastes?" As soon as the shock was made clear in Eamon's voice, Archer immediately regretted trying to make up a backstory for both he and Tamamo. "We're both very hardy. We've survived out there for years." "Oi, husband, do I need to spank you again?" Tamamo asked with an all-too-sweet smile. "You know better than to talk as if you know directions when you can't even read a map, and I haven't looked at one myself in centuries." Archer's eyes widened in horror at what Tamamo had just said. Part of him wanted to shout at how stupid this cover story was. The other part knew that he should just shut up and deal with it. "Yes, what my wife says. My sense of direction is quite awful." Archer had to hold back from giving a glare at the amused foxwoman. "I see." Eamon looked between the pair, as if trying to figure out the logistics behind such a pairing, before he soon gave up. "Still, thank you for the timely aid. While things are chaotic at the moment, I'm certain we can arrange to gather a small portion of your larger reward for now. Would the both of you be willing to continue aiding the Dragon Kingdom, or was this to be the only battle that you were going to be taking part in?" As Archer had little knowledge of the land, and he was unsure if Tamamo did either, it would likely be best if they took advantage of the temporary hospitality from saving this army. "My wife and I would be quite open to continuing a contract with your kingdom. Isn't that right, honey?" Archer asked with a slightly gritted tone. "McCoon!" Tamamo seemingly moaned out with a fox-like grin spreading across her face. She was over by his side in an instant, her voluptuous body pressed against his with a light blush, as if to entice him to take hold of her and never let go. "This Tamamo will follow her Goshujin-sama wherever he might go," the Kistune claimed, rubbing her cheeks against him like one might expect from a cat. Her tail as well snaked its way around his hips to hold him close to her, not allowing him to step away even an inch so she could further sell the story. Though it wasn't quite clear just how much of it was an act and how much was her desperation for an anchor in this world to keep her from being lost and alone herself. Despite her earlier words, she was being rather clingy in the end. "I'm glad to hear that," Eamon replied gratefully, even if he gave a quizzical gaze at the loving couple. "Though, I must admit, it's quite unusual to see such a pairing as you two. Might I ask how you both met?" Archer steeled himself as he wasn't prepared for this. "We, met." Archer found it difficult to even figure out something to phrase, at least until, unfortunately in his mind, Tamamo had to speak up. "I met my husband at the fox shrine my followers had created for me when he was dragged before the goddess Amaterasu to be wed." Tamamo boasted, pushing her not inconsiderable chest out with pride. I was already an accomplished author in my spare time, as was he, at least in our native language, so the goddess of our land decided it would be funny to gather two well-known writers into the same shrine, she told the man with a grin, and then Amaterasu bound us together in holy matrimony and gave us with all of the bare basic knowledge we needed to survive the world. After that, she simply tossed us out and told us not to come back until we had a grand husband and wife adventure of our own and many grandbabies for her to spoil. A coughing came from Archer after he swallowed his spit. Why does this woman have to make things so much worse? Archer thought to himself as he attempted to remain calm. Yes, my lovely wife and I had such a marvelous ceremony. Now can we please move on, because I prefer to not speak of such private affairs. Of course, my apologies, Archer. Please, both of you come with me and I shall lead you to the castle. I'm certain that Lord Arcades would be more than pleased to hear that two powerful mercenaries, well-versed in the ways of magic, have come to help us. He motioned for the pair to follow him, with both Archer and Tamamo giving each other a look, before they followed after the commander. All the while, the pair received more looks from the remaining humans on the battlefield.